on NewsX World. We'll start with a check of the top headlines this hour. US President Donald Trump says he cancelled a previously expected second wave of attacks on Venezuela. Yemen separatist Southern Transitional Council decides to dissolve following talks in Riyadh. Iran's supreme leader lashes out at anti-government protesters as he says Donald Trump should focus on his own country. Meanwhile, Tehran bazaar shutdown, internet blackouts spark nationwide protests. Russia strikes Ukraine with Oreshnik, a ballistic missile, one of its most advanced weapons. US officials discuss sending payments to Greenlanders as part of its bid to convince them to secede. Greenland, Denmark say they're not for sale. European leaders stand behind Copenhagen and Nuuk. Ceasefire in Aleppo announced by Syria's defense ministry ends with army moving into key neighborhoods. US Vice President J.D. Vance accuses media of mishandling the eye shooting of 37-year-old Rennie Nicole Good as Minneapolis protests follow controversial shooting. Elon Musk's X puts limits on use of AI tool Grok after outcry over sexualized deepfakes. All right, viewers, let's start with the top focus here now. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni has ruled out any U.S. military action to seize Greenland, saying she does not believe Washington will launch an operation to take control of the vast Arctic island. Meloni warned such a move would have serious consequences for NATO unity and stability, stressing it would harm alliance interests and cohesion. She called for a serious and significant NATO presence in the Arctic region, including Greenland, to deter hostile interference and protect collective security. Meloni's comments come amid broader European pushback after renewed U.S. interest in Greenland's strategic position and resources. Several NATO allies have publicly supported Denmark's sovereignty over Greenland, saying the island belongs to its people and only they can decide its future. She emphasized stronger alliance cooperation over unilateral action as Arctic security challenges grow. All right, let's request Andrew Latham, who's an international affairs expert, to join in this discussion. Andrew, would you agree with Meloni's statements? What's your assessment?
Yes, well, Prime Minister Meloni, who, by the way, is a Trump ally in many respects, is sending two signals which work together from her perspective, one of which is she doesn't anticipate the United States will actually attack Greenland. But the other is even talk of annexation or invasion is undermining NATO solidarity. It's corrosive of the trust and confidence that's the glue that really holds that alliance together. And at this particular moment, when relations between the U.S. and the European NATO allies are experiencing some friction in any case, this is, to mix metaphors, just adding fuel to the fire. And so her advice implicit is to President Trump, tone it down a little bit. We know you're not going to invade, but even all of this talk really undermines the security of Europe and the security of North America as institutionalized in the security of NATO.
Andrew, what then are the options that are left with Trump?
Well, Trump has one option which makes a lot of sense, the status quo. The United States has treaty rights since 1951 to do really whatever it wants militarily for the security of NATO on the island of Greenland. It has a massive military base, once called Thule, now called Patuxent. And that's the best option. Going forward, he's got a couple of other options, one of which is outright invasion. That's not going to happen. The other one is to purchase it from the government of Denmark, which is the colonial power that still governs Greenland, the way in which Alaska was purchased from Russia a century or so ago. And then the third option, which appears to be under discussion in the White House, is to not buy Greenland, but to buy the votes of Greenlanders with between $10,000 and $100,000 each, so that they will vote voluntarily to leave Denmark and to join the United States. And I guess there's a fourth option, which is a variant on that, which is a kind of quasi-incorporation into the United States, the way in which a number of Pacific Island political units they're nominally independent, but really part of the American political space and economic space. So there are a number of options on the table, but the best option in terms of American security, NATO security, is the status quo. If it ain't broken, don't fix it.
All right, sure. Thanks, Andrew, for joining me with those comments of yours. And with that, viewers, we're now going to proceed. Now, Yemen's main southern separatist group, the Southern Transitional Council, has decided to disband. A member said Friday in Saudi Arabia, where some members are attending peace talks. The talks in Riyadh aim to resolve tensions between Saudi Arabia and the UAE over Yemen. Not all members of the STC attended, and there has been no immediate comment from those outside the talks. The UAE-backed STC leader, Idrus al-Zubaydi, did not go to Riyadh and reportedly fled Yemen with UAE help to Abu Dhabi. A statement in Riyadh said all members will take part in the upcoming Saudi-hosted conference despite the split. Request Andrew to join me back in the discussion here. Andrew, is this then the end of the STC, and what does it say for the relations between UAE and Saudi Arabia, especially because the coalition was backed with the Saudi government?
In the UAE, which are the cornerstone of the anti-Iran coalition in the Persian Gulf, were at loggerheads over this particular issue. Neither wanted Yemen to fall into the sphere of influence of Iran, to be dominated by the Houthis, and both therefore wanted to support the anti-Houthi Yemeni forces. But they had two different ways of approaching it. Saudis wanted a unified Yemen that could then counter Houthi influence, and the UAE, the Emiratis, really wanted just control of the southern ports. So they supported the STC, which had control of the southern ports, and that put them at odds with the Saudis. So this arrangement now, the STC disappearing, means that the Saudi vision has in fact prevailed. There is a united Yemeni front against the Houthis and against Iran's influence in the Saudi peninsula. And the UAE is doing what it can, it seems, in terms of spiriting the leader of the STC away to Abu Dhabi and whatnot to make this happen. A clear Saudi triumph, and probably a triumph for American interests in the region as well.
And how does this then affect the UAE and its goals in the area?
Well, as I said, the UAE and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia have been butting heads, both aspiring to kind of lead in the Persian Gulf, the Arab anti-Iranian forces in the Persian Gulf. And it's a wealthy country, it's an influential country, it's diplomatically quite powerful. There's still a leadership role for it to play, but I rather suspect that this signals that it will be a subordinate role to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, which now has I would say the kind of unchallenged mantle of leader of the Gulf Cooperation Council, which is the institutional form that the Arab states that are opposed to Iranian influence in the region, that's how they organize. And it looks like the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is now running the show.
All right. Thanks very much, Andrew, for your comments and assessment once again. And with that, viewers, we move on. Now, Israeli military is saying that it is attacking Hezbollah targets in several areas in Lebanon, while the Lebanese army said it had taken control of operations in the south of the country. Israel said efforts to disarm Hezbollah fighters were insufficient. The Lebanese army also says it has completed the first phase of its deployment in the south and is disarming non-state groups, including Hezbollah. Israel welcomes the move but says it is far from enough. The disarmament follows a US-brokered ceasefire. Lebanon's president is urging Israel to halt strikes, withdraw from occupied areas, and release prisoners. Israeli military saying it is attacking Hezbollah targets in several areas in Lebanon. That's where the latest developments stem for as far as Hezbollah's disarmament is concerned. Israel military Friday said it is attacking Hezbollah targets in several areas in Lebanon. It bombed Hezbollah and Hamas targets ahead of the disarmament talks as well. in the latest Israel military, saying Hezbollah targets were struck. The Lebanese army, however, said that it had taken operational control in the south of the country just a day ago. But Israel said those efforts were insufficient. In fact, under heavy US pressure and fears of expanded strikes, Lebanon has committed to disarming the Hezbollah group, which is backed by Iran, and has weakened and maintained troops in 5 South Lebanon areas that it deems strategic. The process of disarmament was in fact weakened by more than a year of hostilities with Israel, which included 2 months of all-out war that had ended with a ceasefire in 2024 in November. But despite this truce, Israel has kept up regular strikes in Lebanon, usually saying that it is targeting Hezbollah sites and operatives, and has maintained troops in 5 South Lebanon areas it deems strategic, accusing the group of rearming itself. Now, joining me in this discussion is Ambassador Mahesh Sachdev. Ambassador Sachdev, what's your assessment of the situation? We were discussing yesterday how south of Litani River, Hezbollah was disarmed, and that was a statement that had come out from Lebanon. Israel, of course, continuing to saying that the actions are insufficient, stemming from fears of the militant group backed by Iran to rearm itself. Now, with Iran itself seeing the wave of protests and that desperate statement coming out by Khamenei today, what's your assessment of the situation and Hezbollah's rearmament movements?
Thank you for having me. As our viewers know, Lebanon has been an important theater in Israeli conflict over past 2 years or 2.5 years, with Hezbollah being very active initially against northern Israel based settlements, forcing people to vacate those areas and taking shelter in deep south of Israel due to rocket barrage and shelling, etc. Indeed, Hezbollah was regarded as the most powerful of the non-state actors active against Israel, and therefore its decimation by Israel through various devices, strategies such as pager attacks, such as wireless attacks, extensive bombings, and killing of the leadership of Hezbollah has been lauded in Israel as one of the main achievements of the war, removing the threat to the northern settlements in Israel. Israel also launched attacks on ground in the south, trying to move Hezbollah fighters away from the Litani River, which constitutes a zone south of which Israel doesn't want Hezbollah to be active. The decimation of Hezbollah militarily has also had fallout on Lebanon's political ecosystem, where Hezbollah and their Shia partners such as Amal and other groups were preponderant in the parliament and were very active. So now finally, as a result of diminution of political space for Hezbollah, Lebanon has a new prime minister and a new president. And these two have insisted on disarming Hezbollah, which Hezbollah has refused to do so far. Now, Lebanese army claimed last month that it has successfully disarmed Hezbollah south of Litani River, which faces Israel on the ground. But as your item mentions, Israel is not convinced of that, and it has launched its own attacks on this and further north to destroy Hezbollah's capabilities.
All right. Ambassador, there was also a statement from Lebanon that had come out and to the effect that it has achieved the goal of state monopoly on arms in south.
That's what I said. South of Litani River, it has claimed that only Lebanese army is stationed there, and there's no Hezbollah presence militarily in that area. It should be emphasized at the same time that much of the area facing Israel is Shia dominant area, which is sympathetic to Hezbollah. So Hezbollah's cadres can easily be embedded in that area and can be armed at a short notice.
And how do you?
This is what worries Israel.
And how do you view the visit of Iran, a foreign minister, to Lebanon and address its parliament amidst all of this?
I'm not aware of this, but Lebanese foreign minister had refused to honor the invitation to go to Tehran because Iran was regarded as a power that interferes in the domestic affairs of Lebanon on the side of Hezbollah by arming and providing financial assistance to Hezbollah. And therefore, Iranian foreign minister's return visit without Lebanese foreign minister being there is a gesture of reconciliation to my mind, but I don't have at the moment the details.
All right, sure. Thanks, Ambassador, for your comments here, but do continue to stay on with me. Viewers, let's also tell you news from South Asia. In India, Ministry of External Affairs said that it is aware of a proposed US-Russia sanctions bill and is closely monitoring developments, stressing that India's energy policy aims to keep fuel affordable for its people. Let's listen in.
उसके बारे में हमको ज्ञान है और इन मसलों को और इस बिल को हम लोग बड़े ध्यान से जो भी उनके साथ जो गतिविधियां हो रही है उस पर हम ध्यान अपना केंद्रित किए हुए हैं। साथ ही साथ मैं आपको बताना चाहूँगा कि जहाँ तक ऊर्जा स्रोतों का सवाल है उससे आप भली भांति वाकिफ़ है कि हमारा क्या रवैया है, क्या हमारा अप्रोच है। इस संदर्भ में जैसा कि आप जानते हैं कि हमारी जो हमारा अप्रोच होता है वो वैश्विक बाज़ार में क्या परिस्थिति है, किस प्रकार का माहौल है, उसको मद्देनज़र रखते हुए और साथ ही साथ जो हमारे अपने एक इम्पेरेटिव है कि हमारे जो 1.4 अरब लोग हैं उनको किस प्रकार से सस्ते दाम पर ऊर्जा मुहैया कराया जाए, इन दोनों चीज़ों को देखते हुए हम लोग अपनी ऊर्जा स्रोतों के बारे में हमारी अपनी स्ट्रेटजी और रणनीति को तय करते हैं।
The Sanctioning Russia Act of 2025, driven by Senators Lindsey Graham and Richard Blumenthal and now backed by President Trump, would let the US impose tariffs and secondary sanctions of up to 500% on countries that buy Russian oil, gas, uranium and related exports. The bill's goal is to cut off revenue that funds Russia's war in Ukraine, giving the US president leverage over major buyers like India, China, and Brazil. A version of the legislation also allows the president to waive the 500% tariffs for up to 180 days if it's in US national interest. India already faces high US tariffs of around 50% tied to energy trade, and a jump to 500% could severely hurt exports and bilateral trade, though the bill still needs full approval by the Congress. Request Ambassador Sachdev to join me back in the discussion here. Ambassador Sachdev, do you think India is prepared should such a bill be passed in the US?
I think no country would be prepared for a 500% levy on its exports to its largest foreign market. This is preposterous, and I think in the annals of history, such proposals are rather rare. I can't recall of any such proposal by a major trading power. At the same time, diplomacy is the art of the possible. India has maintained a dignified but flexible approach in this regard. We have not sort of resiled from our strategic autonomy, and we have been clear in enunciating what are the two factors: energy requirement of 1.4 billion people and the price mechanism, availability of oil and gas in the international market to the advantage of India. These are the two factors. It doesn't talk about Russia, it doesn't talk about United States, and so on. So that seemed to be our continuing approach. At the same time, 2 or 3 other factors should be brought into this discussion. Firstly, it is primarily geared to, as Senator Graham has already said, empower the president to do what he would like to do. And at the moment, he would like to pressurize President Putin to accept the 20-point program. He, namely President Trump and the Ukrainian president, have put together for a peace deal in Ukraine war. This, he hopes, would persuade President Trump. It may or may not. President Putin, President Putin's first reaction given yesterday is quite hard and nationalistic. So that is one part. Second, I think it is also to blinking game with Indian leadership. President Trump has difficulty in countenancing Indian Prime Minister not willing to call him or urge him in public to make a concession. And on the other hand, India is being a dignified country, doesn't want its leadership to go down seeking favors from United States. We have done nothing to deserve that kind of treatment. So there is a certain amount of you come first and you come first on both sides. Thirdly, I think Indian economy has been doing reasonably well. The growth rate has actually picked up. Our exports to United States have picked up, and our overall exports to other countries have done well too. So India, while some sectors in India would naturally suffer due to the largest market being so difficult and unpredictable, it is not a burden that Indian economy cannot bear and get on with. Thank you.
All right, Ambassador, one final question before I let you go. Is it possible for India, or is it in a position to retaliate with the sanctions that US is threatening, or any way that India can undo the damage that would be done by these 500% tariffs?
I think it's a good question. I think as astute observers of Indian policy know, they have acted on President Roosevelt's old advice, saying nice doggy but carrying a big stick behind. So India does retain pleasantries with the United States, but it is not without cards. It has, for example, 80% of the market, if I'm certain, of the generic pharmaceuticals in the United States. If we were to withhold them, there will be chaos on the pharmaceutical sector in the United States. There are other instruments that India can use as leverage. Right now, we have been trying to propitiate the United States by meeting all sort of their conditionalities, such as greater import of crude from them, and discussing various concessions with regard to a trade deal. But it could eventually be surmised that United States is not interested in a win-win deal, and then India would be within its rights to retaliate, which cannot be ruled out altogether.
All right, thanks very much then, Ambassador Sachdev, for joining me in this discussion. Moving ahead, viewers, as always, let's end the bulletin with some technology news. Now, CrowdStrike has said that it would buy identity security startup SDNL in a deal valued at $740 million, aiming to enhance its cybersecurity tools to help customers counter artificial intelligence-powered threats. The cybersecurity company looks to benefit from SDNL's continuous identity technology to prevent hackers from exploiting user identities as the entry points for data theft, with constant evaluations at a time when businesses are increasingly granting autonomous access to AI agents. CrowdStrike has entered the identity security market with its acquisition of Preempt Security in 2020, as its identity business had generated more than $435 million in annual recurring revenue as of the second quarter of fiscal 2026. Meanwhile, CrowdStrike CEO George Kurtz has said that CrowdStrike has already a big business there, and now what SDNL provides to CrowdStrike is really an identity fabric. And if CrowdStrike thinks about the threat environments, the adversaries aren't breaking in, and they're logging in, and they're abusing identity. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news and updates from around the world.